pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to Monday, April 20th. If you have any business questions, comments during these proceedings, come up to the microphone, give us your name and address, and state your business with this body. I would like to take a moment and just kind of reflect for a little bit here about Jane Krebs. You know, she passed away, and her funeral was today, and certainly her 11 years spent on this council for us, you know, she was just a tremendous, wonderful person. So can we just maybe take a quick minute here? All right, thank you. I'll ask for the roll call, please.
Cedar.
Here.
Foley.
Here.
Kinsfater.
Here.
Cuffa.
Here.
Laporte.
here.
McCartney.
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. We'll go to consent agenda. There's one change on the city council minutes of April 6th. That date should be April 13th. Under A should be the 13th instead of the 6th. B is the Zoning Board of Appeals minutes of October 15th, 2014 meeting recommendation received. And C is the St. Clair Historical Commission minutes of March 12th, 2015 recommendation received.
Motion to approve A, B, and C as presented, Your Honor.
Support.
Motion made, supporting questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll go to presentations. Tonight's our 2013-14 audit presentation by Bill Tucker for Abraham and Gaffney. Bill?
Great, thank you, Mayor. As I introduced, I'm Bill Tucker from Abraham and Gaffney. There's a couple different documents that were handed out to you in your board packets, and then also one document that I handed out to you today, so I'll go over those quickly for you. So the first one, the bound financial statements for September 30th, 2014. This has all the necessary financial statements, note disclosures, everything that is required within the financial statements in there for you. There was also two loose letters. The first one, loose letter, is on Abraham and Gaffney letterhead. Does not have a title at the top of it. This is what we consider to be our board communication letter. A majority of this letter is boilerplate language. It does address some of the more significant estimates within the financial statements for such things as useful lives of capital assets. And then the last letter that we have for you that I'll be going over today as well is the independent auditor's report on internal control. So we have a couple different findings within this letter that we'll be discussing during our audit presentation. And then the last document that I handed out to you today was an outline for today's presentation. So if everybody wanted to use this document, I pulled information directly from the financial statements for you, and then added in a couple graphs in there as well. So I'll go page by page through this document. It'll make it a little bit easier for everybody to follow along with the presentation. Before I did get started as well, I wanted to take a minute and thank Mike and his staff for their...
Mr. Kleeman?
Yeah, presentation, that's okay, no PowerPoint, nothing for the public to follow through?
Nope, I don't have anything for the public, sorry.
Mr. Kleeman, if you'd like, it is on the state website. We have copies, full draft copies at the office here. If you'd like, we can get you a copy of that.
That's follow along with the presentation now, it's a question, right?
We'll make a note, make sure that that does happen next year, Bill.
Right. Like I said, before I did get started, I wanted to take a minute and thank Mike and his staff for their courtesy and cooperation throughout the audit process. Things go very smoothly out here for our audit, so we do appreciate all of their hard work, so thank you very much for that. All right, the first page that everybody will turn to within their audit presentation outline is the independent auditor's report. The purpose of an audit is to provide an opinion as to the fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. It's not to detect fraud, and it's not to give you an opinion on your internal controls. Within the independent auditor's report, we're providing our opinion on your financial statements, and we're giving our opinion on the 10 opinion units of the city. Those 10 opinion units are described in the first paragraph. They are the governmental activities, the business type activities, the aggregate discretely presented component units, each major fund, in which there was 6 major funds in the current year, the general fund, the major street fund, the 2005 road construction bond fund, the sewer fund, the water fund, and the harbor fund. And then the last opinion unit is the aggregate remaining fund information. Our opinion on those 10 opinion units is located at the top of the second page in the paragraph that's labeled opinions, in which it states, in our opinion, based on our audit and the report of other auditors, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. That's what we consider unmodified or clean opinion, and that's the best opinion you can receive on your financial statements, which means everything is presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. All right. From there, I'll turn to the next page. The next page that you'll turn to is pages 3 and 4 of the financial statements. Pages 3 and 4 is the governmental funds balance sheet. This is a snapshot of your assets, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and fund balance at September 30th, 2014. On this page, I'd like to focus on the general fund, as it is the main operating fund of the city. In particular, I'd like to look at the fund balance totals for your general fund. So, far left column, second number up from the bottom, you get total fund balance in your general fund of $3,167,767. With portions of that are considered to be non-spendable for such things as prepaid expenses, leaving you with a signed and unassigned fund balance of $2,888,847 that is available for expenditures in future periods. This dollar amount represents approximately 79% of your annual operating expenses. Just for comparison purposes as well, in the last year that was about 97% of your annual operating expenses, so that percentage did go down slightly. Overall, a good, very healthy financial condition. Our typical recommendation for your fund balance would be a minimum of 15 to 20% is what we'd like to see in there as a minimum. So being well above that is a very good, healthy condition for the city. From there, I'll turn to the next page. Next page that you'll turn to is pages 6 and 7 of the financial statements. Pages 6 and 7 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for the year ended September 30th, 2014. On this page as well, I'll focus on the general fund, starting at the top of your revenues and moving our way down to the expenditures. You had total revenues in your general fund of $3,641,988. That was a decrease of approximately $17,600 or 0.5% from 2013 to 2014. A couple different fluctuations that we saw within your revenues. Your tax revenues were down approximately $112,000 from 2013 to 2014. And the main reason for that is you had a decrease in your taxable value within the city of $7.5 million. The second area that we saw fluctuation within your revenues was the investment earnings and rents. Investment earnings were up $115,000. 2013, if you remember, was a very unique year where actually we saw some losses on fair value investments. So you actually had like a negative number within your revenues last year. So I think the $115,000 still isn't back up to your normal range for your investment earnings and interest income, but is obviously significantly higher than it was in the previous year. Moving down the page to your expenditures, you had total expenditures of $3,047,783. That was an increase of approximately $106,000 or 3.6% from 2013 to 2014. A couple different areas that we saw changes within your expenditures. The first area was within your public safety expenditures. Your public safety expenditures were up approximately $45,000. two different factors for that. The first factor was there was a sick payout for 2 employees, one that retired and one that was terminated during the year, so a little bit of an increase in cost there for the sick payout. And also there was extra overtime paid in 2014 related to the Stone Garden funding this year. The other area within your expenditures that we saw fluctuation was your other expenditures. Within your other expenditures, you have your fringe benefits and your insurance is within that other category. That was up about $42,000 from 2013 to 2014. And the main reason for that was your health insurance costs went up about 11%, or $36,000 from 2013 to 2014. All right, from there I have a couple different graphs and charts for you. The first one is a bar chart. This is a 5-year analysis of your general fund revenues, expenditures, and fund balance. The blue is your revenues and other financing sources. The red is your expenditures and other financing uses, and then the green is your fund balance numbers for your general fund. As you can see from this chart, 4 out of the last 5 years, your revenues have exceeded your expenditures. So a good positive trend on your fund balance, and stayed pretty consistent as well through those 5 years. The next chart that I have for you is 2 pie charts. These are the compositions of your general fund revenues and expenditures. The first one is your general fund revenues and other financing sources. Just give you an idea where those revenues are coming in from. 67% of your revenues are coming in from property taxes. That is down slightly from the previous year, as mentioned before. Last year was about 70% of your total general fund revenues was coming in from property taxes. Moving down the page to your expenditures, a large piece of the pie for your general fund expenditures was your public safety expenditures at 30%. That was very consistent with last year. Last year was also 30%. And the second largest piece of the pie there is your general government expenditures at 20%. Last 2 pages I have for you is, as I mentioned before, was that report on internal control. We did have a couple different findings within there. First thing that I wanted to mention, the first category that we would go to within the report on internal control deals with significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. As you kind of read through those first 3 paragraphs, what we're describing there is that we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses within your internal controls or financial reporting, so within those first 3 paragraphs. As you get to the bottom of the page, it relates to compliance and other matters. So during our audit, we did have a couple instances of non-compliance. The first area that we describe here is related to fund deficits. The reserve pension tax levy fund was still in a fund deficit in 2014. So that was consistent with last year's as well. I think that deficit went from about $30,000 to about $90,000 in 2014. And then the second piece there for you is the unfavorable budget variances. So there's a couple of different areas where your expenditures exceeded your appropriations in your general fund and also that reserve pension tax levy fund. All right, that's all I plan to go over for the council. Does anybody have any questions?
Sounds like Mike's doing a good job.
Or else the people who work for him are.
Oh, okay.
2 people.
Might be both. Bill, the Reserve Pension Tax Levy Special Revenue Fund,
Yes.
can you chop that down into something I understand?
Are you looking at the deficit that is in that fund, or, so that fund, I believe, has a property tax levy for it. It brings in approximately, let me just look at this up for you real quick. Brings in about $183,000 of property tax revenues in that fund. There's expenditures to fund the property, or the pension, and about $403,000 coming out of that fund. I believe the other funds that are coming in there, other than property taxes, would be a transfer from the general fund to help cover those pension expenses as well.
Is this part of an unfunded liability? Is that what I'm looking at? Is that what that is?
What they're doing, Bill, you can probably explain better than I can. GASB 68 is out now, so what they're doing is the annual contribution for the unfunded pension liability. They keep bumping it up, or cutting the years. They used to allow you to fund the unfunded piece over a longer period. And what they're doing is GASB 68, first of all, they're going to put it on the financials in total. And then what they're doing is they're also shrinking down the years that you can fund it. So if they're shrinking the years that you can average that over, of course, the expense goes up, and that's what they're doing. They're charging us more to fund that unfunded. So yes. To answer your question, long way around.
Right.
Could you give me those, those numbers one more time? It was 183 and 403?
Yep, it's on page 50 of the financial statements, if you have those financial statements in front of you. That has the revenues and expenditures for your non-major special revenue funds. So on page 50, if you went to the far right, and that's the third one over from the far right, it's the Reserve Pension Tax Levy Fund. So your pension, or your property taxes coming in for that fund was the $183,462. Your expenditures were the $403,000. And then the transfer in at the sort of fifth number up from the bottom, $158,000. That would be the transfer for coming in from like the general fund to help cover that fund.
Anybody else? Anybody in the audience have anything? All right. Well, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booth. I know it's a lot of work, this accounting stuff you guys call numbers and such. All right. We will go to number 6, ordinance and resolution. A, ordinance adoption, amendment to zoning ordinance to change the zoning classification of property 678 North Riverside. This is the PUD. I'm assuming we have quite a few representatives tonight from different groups here. If anybody has anything new, because this has been before us before, but if you have anything new to add, or something enlightening.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance adoption.
Go ahead and make the motion, and then we can have the discussion after the motion's been made.
To change the zoning classification of property at 678 North Riverside.
I'll second.
All right, the motion's made and supported to amend the zoning ordinance. Do we have any questions or comments? Anybody have anything? Yes, sir.
Mayor, I raised my hand to make some comments over what's been going on. Is this the appropriate time?
This is the time. You want to come up to the microphone? Just give us your name and address.
I'm Chris Breeden at 700 North Riverside, and you've heard most of the comments before, but I know this is an important issue, and it's been going on a while, and I just want to reiterate some of the important points. And I've lived in this town for 35 years. I had 53 neighbors that were opposed to having this zoning change. He did have to apply to have a zoning change. I want to reiterate that the Planning Commission went through the master plan and changed the homes, the 5 properties south of me, to R1 that used to be zoned R3. Right next to me, the Evans property has always been a single-family residence. I think it should be left that way, and that's what the city planners did. They changed those zoning to R1 because they thought that was the best use, and I believe that was the right decision. And now there's a proposal to change the zoning to a PUD, And I'm just against the principle of changing something because one person wants to do that for his own personal needs. I thought that the city council should be representative of all the people along the street there, and almost everyone was against this. And I don't think it's the right thing to do. And I think that the city council and should be looking at the overall vision. What is the vision for St. Clair? You made some of those changes along with another 150 or so that you did, but the vision is what's best for the city, not just for me. I'm against it because I don't want to have 3 families, 3 condominiums next door to me with a pool and the added traffic of 3 two-car garages, storage units, added height to putting another level on top of the existing home. I don't think that's the right thing. We have a very unique community, and I think we have to build on our history. That's part of what makes St. Clair St. Clair. And Evans' home was built by a famous builder, and it was an heir of the Fisher body. It was a unique design and a unique architecture. I think it should be not changed into condominiums. My home was designed by a famous architect, the first apprentice of Frank Lloyd Wright. I don't think that house should be changed. My neighbor, Ed Sodden, who, as most of you know, passed away this weekend, had a beautiful French country home and a very special home, along with many others, the English Tudor, and we could go on and on. But all these are unique homes, and Mr. Sodden was a good friend of mine and a good neighbor, and he was a visionary in this St. Clair, and he did some beautiful things, as we all know, for the city of St. Clair, including the clock that he put in there. I talked to him many a night about what was going on in this, and he would have loved to have been here. But I know he's here in spirit, and he was opposed also to having condominiums put on single-family homes. I'm just asking the city council to look at the overall picture and do what is right for the city. I just want to briefly, I know you have a time frame, but I think it's important that you take a town like Harbor Springs that was voted one of the top 10 communities, small towns in the United States. Why? Because they have very strict zoning, they have a very strict council, and they are very careful with what they do in their city, and they have kept their history. You wouldn't think that on Harbor Point, with all the beautiful cottages that are there, they'd allow somebody to tear one down and put 3 condominiums. There's no way that would even get a chance. Look at the town of Petoskey. We talk about, I stressed the point of safety, which I think was overlooked. It is very difficult pulling out of my driveway and my neighbor's driveway. The town of Petoskey worked hard to put the boulevards in there to slow down the traffic to go through. We've talked about that for St. Clair. That's one of the things that I think could be done to help slow down the traffic, but now I'm talking about having 3 families living next door to me. I think all of you, did you get the letter, which my attorney is going to address in a minute, regarding the PUD? I think there's some serious legal issues with what's going on with allowing a PUD to go in a single-family residence. With that said, I'm asking the council, and thank you for your time, but to do the right thing and stick with the original master plan and leave the property zone as R1. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to have my representative.
I'll tell you what, we'll go back and forth here. Greg, can you hang on 1 minute, please? All right. You want to say something, Gary?
Sure.
My name is Gary Fletcher, 1411 3rd Street, Port Huron. I am not here as Wally's attorney, or Mr. and Mrs. Evans' attorney, and if this were to go somewhere further, and I don't want this to be perceived as any threat of that, I won't be involved for reasons that are personal to me. But my history on this is Wally had called me a long time ago and said that his property was zoned R3, which would permit multiple in it, and I think a lot more than he's proposing now. And there was a proposal to rezone his property. And what he asked me is, did I think that it was something that if the rezoning was going to move ahead, that he should try to fight to keep what he had when he bought the property, because he had had this vision of some kind of a condominium or multiple use. And I had actually lined up somebody that is a zoning and planning expert attorney to handle it, because it's just something that we represent a lot of municipalities, and we tend not to get lawsuits against municipalities. So in any event, what Wally said to me, and I don't want to get into any individuals, he said that he had spoken with somebody in the city, and what they suggested is if he wanted to do something multiple, which he wanted to convert this to condominiums, that a better course, rather than fight with the city, would be to work with them to try to seek a PUD designation if he actually had a plan that got finalized. And he asked me what I thought, and I said, well, I thought working with the city was a better idea than suing the city and trying to maintain the zoning he had when he bought the property. But what I told him is that if he was going to pursue the PUD designation, that what he would have to do is come up with a really good plan, that's something that could be supported by the planner for the city, and it would have to be something that could be supported by the Planning Commission for the city that would be in its best interest to pursue. In the Planning Commission looks at what's good for the overall city, not individuals, a neighbor or whatever. And the other thing is, I understand there are other multiple uses around the Evans property. And so what Wally said is, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to skip the idea of appealing this or trying to fight it. And we'll work with the city, and if I come up with a plan that I think is a good plan, then I'll take it to the planner and the Planning Commission and see where it goes. So that's what he did. And he went to the planner, and or developed a plan, Mr. Monte did. I understand that the planner reviewed it, he recommended it. It went to the Planning Commission. I understand the Planning Commission unanimously supported it. And so I think he's done all the right things to preserve what he had in the first place, which was a multiple designation. And I hope all of you will see it that way, that he's done it the right way, rather than fight to keep what he had, which was what the original zoning was when they bought the property, to develop something that would be attractive, that would be owner-occupied units, that would enhance the value of the property, and certainly isn't going to hurt anybody else. So that was my advice to him. And once again, if this ends up some kind of a row, I will not be involved. I'm just here as somebody who kind of gave him some advice that turns out might not have been the greatest of advice, but he called me as a friend and I told him what I thought. So.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Greg Stremmers. I'm an attorney in Port Huron, 316 McMorran. And I was contacted last week by Dr. Breeden, and he knew that I do a lot of municipal work also, like Mr. Fletcher. I'm very familiar with Mr. Fletcher and your own attorney, two very fine, great attorneys here. A lot of municipal experience here tonight. But what I found, he asked me to look at it and just comment on the ordinance and the application for the PUD. And when I looked at this, my first impression, this was easily defensible to deny, and probably should be denied. The reason is that back in 2012, you went back and you rezoned all these properties to a single-family use, and the application now is bringing that back to what you already spent a lot of time and money on, correcting that situation to keep these very nice and historic single-family homes along the riverfront. Great location for it, and it was a good idea at the time, and it's still a good idea today. The second thing you did is you updated your master plan. I believe that was in 2012 too, or when you did it. Your master plan is consistent with a single-family use. That's what you have now. A PUD would eviscerate that. It wouldn't be consistent with the master plan. And what the Zoning Enabling Acts tell us is that we're supposed to have our zoning plan and our zoning ordinances consistent with our master plan. By granting the PUD in this case, it wouldn't be consistent with the master plan. So that's another problem that you should scrutinize that. The third thing I looked at is look at your own ordinance 8.2 for PUDs. If you look through 8A through E, you really have to give a yes to all of those in order to say this is a good idea for a PUD. When you go through 8A through E, there's not a single yes in there. Is this a benefit to the whole community? No. You've already spent a lot of money to go back to single family in this area. And I understand that was very much supported by the community, and there wasn't a lot of objection when you did that. You look at at number 2, is this, when you look at a PUD is really to develop an undeveloped piece of property to develop and combine and have efficiencies with natural resources or efficiencies on that property. This property is already developed. The house is already there. There's no reason to use a PUD to make it basically multifamily, which you've already gotten rid of in 2012. One of the other questions is does this make it less conforming? Well, it does. So a PUD is not a good idea. Whenever you make it, you try to make things more conforming to your zoning ordinance, not less conforming. So that's another reason to deny it. And Andrea Beeden is in real estate, and I know she's the sister of Dr. Beeden, but she had some really good points, and I don't know if you researched her letter, but it was very eloquent and said why, based on her experience as a realtor, why this would be a poor idea for the community. One of the questions that came up when I was looking at this, what about the next property that comes up? And they want to do a condo. Are you going to have now a developer comes and it's more efficient that way, or more, make some more money that way? Are you going to have a series of every other house then with some condos and maybe a community pool? I don't think that was the intent of what council was trying to do when you changed your ordinances. A couple other observations. I think that if you did this, you kind of set a bad precedent for the next case that comes up. It's always hard to argue and deny someone on the next case when you set this precedent of granting this PUD. So the next one that comes up, if you grant tonight, it's going to make it even harder. And I think, again, that eviscerates the intent of what you did in your ordinances back in 2012. I guess my final point is that, you know, how we define spot zoning, sometimes it's a little vague, but I think the Michigan Supreme Court defined it as an area not consistent with the surrounding uses. And that's what this is. You have one piece now that's carved out just for this type of use, R3 instead of R1. And spot zoning is suspect. You don't want to do that. You try not to do that. As a municipal attorney, I try to tell my clients, don't do that, because it negates the reason of a zoning ordinance. Why would you have little spots in your zoning ordinance that are consistent with what your plan is, and particularly your master plan? And I think there's no downside to denial. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow for Mr. Evans, having come all this way, but I think your case, if you deny this, is clearly defensible. It's one hearing before a circuit judge. If it's appealed, the circuit judge is going to look at it. You're going to file a brief, and he's going to say, typically what they say to the judges is that the judges say to the lower boards such as this is they defer to your opinion. All you have to show is a good basis. It's not arbitrary or capricious. So it's easily defensible, and I think it is a bad precedent. And I would be glad to answer any questions that the board may have as you're discussing this.
Thank you, Greg. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
John Monte from Project Control Engineering, 2420 Point Trumbull, Algonac, Michigan, here on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Evans. I've got to respect all of the comments that were made. Certainly, I can see where they come from with a project of this nature. I just wanted to add here that you've got to look at what is a master plan. And there was a lot of raving comments that the master plan was changed and that was the right thing to do. And a master plan is a vision of what a particular commission at the time may be thinking they'd like to see happen in the city. Many years ago, someone had the vision that that area was multifamily. May not be your opinion, it might not be this commission's opinion. You know, everybody looks at it a little bit differently. So why do you change a master plan? Well, every 10 years they say you should look at it, reevaluate it, because conditions change or things happen, developments occurs, economy changes, and that kind of thing. In this particular case, I know it was mentioned in the spot zoning, but I kind of think that that's kind of inaccurate in this situation. You have multifamily units. We passed out this little drawing previously that shows some of the multifamily units that currently surround this site. So at one time, some multifamily development had occurred here. Planning Commission thought in the future, let's try to move the trend of what we're doing. However, they left a PUD ordinance in effect that allowed a property such as this to come in when it had a unique circumstance. For example, this particular one being next to current existing multifamily uses. So it's not that all of a sudden the entire waterfront in the city of St. Clair is going to be multifamily because this happens. It's this particular case that your planning commission, the same group that is not inexperienced, your planner is not inexperienced, studied this and said, in this case, this makes sense. Not every property along the waterfront. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Unless anybody has anything new, I'm going to call for the vote here. Before I do, though, I want to thank everybody that's been involved in this. This has been kind of a long process, and we've been through a lot with this, and everybody has really conducted themselves, I think, in a professional manner, and it shows that democracy works no matter what happens with this vote here. Unless there's anything, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Laporte,
Yes.
McCartney,
No.
Foley,
Yes.
Kinsfater,
No.
Cuffa,
Yes.
Cedar,
No. Mr. Downey, tie vote.
Motion fails, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. I'll go to number 7, reports of administration. Mr. Booth, do you have anything tonight?
I have a few items, Your Honor. First of all, I'd like to give a little update on floating docks. The city's floating dock project has been reviewed by the Army Corps of Engineers. Public notice has been posted, and it is on their website. If anyone would like to see that, it will be on our board tomorrow. It was just received today. The posting itself will expire May 10th. Between now and then, I will finalize 2 items. The first is a change to the sidewalk, and the second item is a change to the floating dock pieces themselves. Both changes are needed to comply with ADA requirements. Last council meeting, I was asked about the tax IFTs. I am waiting for some additional information. Once I get that, I'll provide a list of the IFTs. I'll also provide any investment or employment information that I can gather. So don't have that yet tonight, but I will have it. And I hope to have it next meeting. Final item is the crack sealing equipment. Yesterday I received a quote for crack sealing from Blue Water / R&B Seal Coating. They're a local group, I think I'd mentioned it last time, where they purchased essentially the same unit that we are looking to buy. They bought used. They provided the pricing, which includes material and labor. I'll complete the comparison and see if it's more cost-effective to purchase their service, product, material. If it's not, I'll complete the bid document that I was authorized to go forward with and get it advertised. So, just trying to kick all the cans as I go along, just make sure we're looking at all the factors. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, anything from Mr. Booth?
Yeah, the crack sealing, then we're going to make a decision at our next meeting?
Yeah, I'll have something for you.
Okay, because if we wait much longer,
Mike, if I look at it and it doesn't make sense, I think you've already authorized me to get the bid together and get it out.
One
So
way or
I'll
the
do
other,
that.
we're going to make a decision next meeting, you're
Yeah.
saying.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody else with anything from Mr. Booth? Mr. Downey, you have anything tonight?
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Okay. City departments, I know, Annette, you have a little something?
I do, yes. A reminder of the special election to be held Tuesday, May 5th, 2015. Polls will be open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's one state proposal on the ballot. To confirm your voter's registration status, find out where you vote, and to view a sample ballot, visit www.michigan.gov/vote or contact the clerk's office. If you're unable to attend the polls on that day, an absent voter ballot application is available on our website or by contacting the clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to D. Authorities, boards, and commissions, anybody have anything tonight? No unfinished business. Number 9, new business. A, approved purchase of Jacobson mowers for Pine Shores Golf Course.
Okay, I will start it. Mr. Beath is here from Pine Shores. May I ask him to help support the argument. In your packets, I included, I think, rather lengthy document. I'm going to go through most of it here. Looking to purchase a Jacobson GP 400 and a Jacobson AR 522. They're both demo units. The first unit, the GP 400, will replace a Jacobson greens mower that was purchased in April of 2000. Way back then, we paid $14,577 for that. The second mower, the AR 522, will replace the Jacobson rough mower that was purchased in June of 1999, and the cost of that original unit was $38,000. You'll see that the new unit, the demo, was actually less expensive than what we paid for the initial. Purchasing two, let me step back a second. The price for the demo units for the GP 400 is $23,005.52. The hours on it's 123 hours. Jacobson AR 522 demo price is $37,250.48. It has 163 hours on it. I'll move along now. We considered purchasing two Toro mowers, but the units were more costly. The price for comparable units, one was $48,156 and one was $28,029, and we could not find a demo. But those prices were more expensive than the new Jacobsons. To finance this purchase, we also considered leasing over 36 months. This would add an additional $4,061.24 to the purchase price. Of course, a 48 and a 60-month lease would only add to that cost. So we stopped with that. Thus, to keep the purchase price down, I recommend purchasing the two mowers by using funds from the equipment pool. The equipment pool has a cash balance in excess of $840,000. We would then charge Pine Shores an annual rental fee over a 7-year term, which would equate to about $8,608 per year charge. As the golf course just exited from their deficit position, that was in 2014, that they had been in for many years, they do not yet have the cash balance necessary to purchase the mowers. Going forward, cash flows to cover the rental payment, repayment to the general fund for money loaned during the deficit, and an annual amount to set aside for future capital improvements is attainable. And then please know Mr. Beath is here if you have questions on the units themselves.
Bob, on the existing units that you've been nursing all these years, you've got a pretty robust maintenance program on those. Yeah. You've been went through a lot of rebuilding and. Bob, will you come up to this microphone, please?
I was hoping to avoid that.
We all hope to, but it doesn't happen.
The AR-250 is, you can't even buy parts for it anymore. The only thing available is what's on the shelf, and there's very little on the shelf. So I've been having to have parts made, and now we're getting into parts that require stamping, stuff of that nature, and the cost of having it done is, just puts it right out of the ballpark. And then and now the motor is starting to fail too. So even if we put a couple $1,000s into the mower decks themselves, and then we have a $9,000 engine failure, it just throwing good money after bad, really.
Well, Your Honor, we've all said this privately and in conversations, and I wanted to say this publicly while Bob was up here in front of this board. Bob's done an exceptional job at that golf course, and I get compliments from everyone around the county that golfs, people from out of the area that come in to the marina. With or without this, you've done a fantastic job in keeping those machines together all this time. Is my hats off to you. So, with that being said, Your Honor, I'd move to approve.
I'll support.
All right, the motion's made and supported to approve the purchase of the mowers from Pine Shores Golf Course. Questions, comments?
I just have one question, Bob. Did you make a call to Zimmer's just to see? I know you don't use X marks, but
No, these mowers are specialty mowers. They would have nothing that could do the job these mowers do.
well, they only because of the calls that I've made to Mike, for Little League. I know they handle. They have access to other Toros, and so on and so forth.
There's Toro Golf, and then there's Toro. You know, they're more into the smaller machines and the zero turns and stuff like that. Toro Golf is a whole different, it's just like John Deere. You can get John Deere at Home Depot, but to go to John Deere Golf, you have to go all the way to Grand Rapids. And just because they carry John Deere, they can't get golf equipment. So it's, you know.
So to answer my question, the answer is no.
No.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, the motion's made, supported, call the roll, please.
McCartney?
Yes.
Foley?
Yes.
Kinsfater?
Yes.
Cuffa?
Yes.
Report?
Yes.
Cedar?
Yes.
Carried, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Go to number 10, claims of the council, April 17th, 2015.
Hearing no questions, Your Honor, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported, questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go to number 11, public comment, public questions. Anybody have anything tonight?
So, my name is South Riverside. Still looking for my answer, Mike, on hydrant flushing, if it started and when it is.
I have a note on that as well.
And last Wednesday.
And the ditching, I think I'd meant. The other question you had last time, I think, was about the ditch on Oak,
That was the week before.
week before.
My new question is, Wednesday the 15th, flags were ordered half staff. Any particular reason why the city didn't drop theirs?
I'm not aware of one, no.
Which flags weren't?
April 15th?
Everyone in the city has.
No, because we drove by, my wife said, why the flags at half-staff? And I said, I'm sure it came from the governor.
Down at my house and over here wasn't. And in the city.
My wife doesn't miss anything.
What's my question? Why weren't they over?
I'm telling you. She doesn't.
Any answers on that one too, Mike?
Sure, yeah. Some were and some weren't, but
I didn't receive a notification from the governor or the president authorizing such. Not to say that there wasn't, but I didn't receive
The
one.
governor authorized, the president did, the governor followed. It was the anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's death, 150 years. That's why the president and then the governor followed the president.
It was on the 15th?
yeah, I'll look and see if we had anything. I don't think we did.
All right. Anybody else? Public comment? All right, we will go to number 12. Mayor and council members' comments and announcements. I have a couple quick things. One is that on May 7th, Thursday, May 7th, at Pine Shores Golf Course, there's going to be a wine tasting fundraiser to benefit the St. Clair City Pool, hosted by Women's Life Chapter 814, $25 a person in advance, $30 at the door. Tickets are available at the City of St. Clair and the Manuel Lutheran Church. There's a raffle, delicious foods and wines for purchase. And all proceeds go to the St. Clair City Pool. That is May 7th. And also, I do want to take another moment and mention Jane Krebs, because, you know, we were very fortunate to have Jane Krebs in this city. She loved this town. And she really had a spot in her heart for the beautification, the flowers, the flower beds, the hanging baskets. One thing that sticks out in my mind about Jane Krebs, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is in the committees and commissions I served and attended the meetings that Jane was in, I could always count on Jane coming in with an open mind and an open heart. She was always just willing to help and do anything to help this town, and she really was just a wonderful lady, and we were very, very, very fortunate to have her around here. We're going to miss Jane Krebs, and our blessings and our thoughts for her family, too. I'll ask for a motion in number 13 for the closed session to discuss strategy connected with the negotiation of collective bargaining agreement with the employees represented by the Police Officers Labor Council.
So moved.
Support.
Motion's been made and supported. Questions? All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, call a roll. Sorry about that.
Foley?
Yes.
Kinsfater?
Yes.
Cuffa?
Yes.
Report?
Yes.
McCartney?
Yes.
Cedar?
Yes.
Carried, Your Honor.
All right, we will not be taking any action when we return, but you are certainly more than welcome to hang around and just enjoy the ambiance.